There you go.
Is it really, Debbie?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's cold everywhere else.
In that greater Florida, Tucson metropolitan area.
Right.
Right.
What part of Florida, Debbie?
Pasco County.
Yeah,
So
what-
just north of Tampa.
Oh, okay, all right. Home of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers,
That's right.
Yes.
Super Bowl contenders.
Super
Yeah.
Bowl.
Super Bowl.
We go.
All right, go Bucks.
Just so happens to go.
Yeah. And my son just joined, his new football team is the Bucks. So, you know, it's
Oh,
become a
awesome.
favorite in the house. Hasn't always been, but it is now.
Right.
A lady on the call named Mary Pike. That's my best friend's mother's name.
Oh, is
Mary
it
Pike,
is
like
it the
the
same? Could it possibly be the same woman?
No, because Mary's about 90.
Okay, nope. Our Mary is not.
This Mary will be 73 in April.
Mm.
Oh, well,
Our
we went to
product
high school
worked.
together then, Mary.
It's a hot little woman. All right, guys, it is time. It's time to let you know who Jim and George are and what you're going to be hearing about today. I'm thrilled. I'm just absolutely thrilled to introduce them to you. And there we go. Sorry, we're just going to change the screen just a tiny bit. There we go. I'm thrilled. I originally met Jim Packard back in my real estate days. He did a presentation about another company that he was with. And as you'll find out today, it was funny, it was fun. And he's just such a down-to-earth man that I immediately connected with him. And I think he felt the same way because he kind of made his way over to my office right afterwards and sat down and had a one-on-one with me. And from there, our friendship formed. And it really, truly has been a very magical friendship. We've known each other. It's got to be, I'm just going to take a stab in the dark, 20 years at this point.
Yeah, I think so, Stephanie.
Yeah, roughly 20 years. And, you know, through this last business that he's been running with George Campbell, it's fortunate because it really has married us together and we get an opportunity to see each other a lot more and to talk to each other and present. And I couldn't be more thrilled because I love my time with Jim and George. I hope you do too. George will give a little bit of his presentation as well as to his background, but George will keep you laughing. He is a comedian. So have some fun, enjoy. This is a light presentation, but it really, truly will make a huge difference with how you look at each day and how you can help your team members. And they're going to be talking about consistency, of course, but you can use this program that they're going to be teaching you in every part of your life. So whether it's obviously with business, but if it's with relationships, health, working out, food, whatever it may be, you can really take this information and apply it everywhere. And when Jim sat down with me, I think about 3 years ago to go over this, and I read his book, which was a great book to read. I think I read through it in about an hour and a half to 2 hours. I couldn't put it down. And I related to everything that was stated, both myself related to George, to Jim, and a little bit with George, but I saw a lot of team members with George, and it just helped me understand the whole diversity of what we think of with our teams and put it all into practice. And so we've been practicing the consistency chain hopefully every day ever since we learned about it. So this is a true treat. It's a gift. I hope you all enjoy it as much as we have. And George and Jim, if you would take it away, we cannot wait to hear about your consistency chain.
Yeah, I'll start it off, George, if you don't mind. It's we just got off a call. We did a call for a group of people over in the UK, and it's nice to have somebody speak English. So at least I can understand you, Stephanie. But anyway, let me tell you how I first met George, because at the time I was building a network marketing team, and my son Jeff called me, said, "Hey, Dad, I have a friend coming in to speak to our group. How about you and Mom like to come down and support the group. And we were living in Scottsdale at the time, and Jeff was down in Tucson. So we jumped in the car, put the dog in the car, and drove down to Tucson. And I kind of slipped in the back row because I had the dog and was in the hotel room, and it was hot, so I couldn't leave the dog in the car. I'm a big dog fan. So anyway, I'm sitting there, and this guy is speaking, and George was speaking in the front of the room. My son Jeff had introduced him as Joe Malarkey, America's worst motivational speaker. And I'm thinking, well, okay. As I'm sitting there, I'm going, my goodness gracious, this guy is funny. Yeah, he's good. Where did Jeff find him? That's what I was thinking. And little did I know at the time that George had been a stand-up comic for 10 years with Jerry Seinfeld and that whole group of comics that came up together. And I later found out that he was in the Speakers Hall of Fame. And that's a pretty big deal, as I've come to realize, because less than 2% of all the speakers in the world are in the Hall of Fame, and George is one of those. He had appeared on 60 Minutes. He'd been on To Tell the Truth. He was in the cover article of the LA Times. And I'm going, wow, this guy is good. And Stephanie, I'm sitting there and watching George perform going, oh my gosh, I wished he was on our team. I mean, can you imagine the guy with the following that he had? I mean, thousands and thousands of followers. He had stage presence. Well, little did I know that if George had been on my team, he probably would have really have frustrated me, because he'd go into that bucket that would be, he didn't have the why that made him cry, or didn't have he wasn't focused enough or motivated enough. And he would just be one of those people that you would go, whatever happened to George? He had so much potential. And I remember going up to George and saying to him, if you ever need a partner, I'd love to partner with you. And I mean, he didn't need me. He was doing fine on his own. But we kept in touch for 10 years. And finally, we saw each other at an event. And he was the guest speaker of an NSA meeting. And he looks at me and he says, Jim, I'm putting together a program that's going to be bigger than the Malarkey program, and you'd be the perfect partner. And I go, you mean like 50-50? And he goes, no, or like 80-20. And so that's how we came together about 3.5 years ago now. So with that, let me give you Mr. Malarkey, or in this case, George Campbell.
Thank you, Jim. That I will tell you, while Jim's introduction to me is accurate, I think it's misleading also, because it makes me sound way cooler than I actually was. When I started, I had a year in advance starting this journey over Jim, and I began I just wanted to solve the question: how is it possible for smart, capable people to know that if they did a few simple things on a consistent basis, it would result in tremendous life improvement, and yet for some reason they find themselves unable to do that? And the reason why I wanted to explore that was because that was me. I was one of those people that, it's like Jim said, he would look at me. I was one of those people that you look at in network marketing and you're just going, why isn't he super successful? I mean, knows lots of people, tremendous database, all this stuff. And then you look up one day and he's not with the company anymore, with the group anymore. So I began this researching this topic of what is it that makes people successful, and what is it that makes people able to stay at a task long enough for it to become real. And as I began to talk to groups about this, what I realized was a lot of people related to me. We're going to talk about the 80-20 thing a great deal here in the beginning. A lot of the people who struggle with consistency related to me. But what I realized was I needed somebody that could speak to this issue from the other side. And that is someone who could, who was consistent, who had built big businesses and everything else, to speak to it from the leadership side of it. And when I was thinking about, well, who would be my first choice for that? It was Jim. So So this is kind of cool. Jim, the first time he ever saw me, I was on stage. The first time I ever saw Jim, he was on stage. He was with the network marketing company. I was with the same network marketing company. It was the first big event that I'd gone to for them. And he was on stage along with his two sons. And Jim was distributor of the year of that company. One of his sons was also just later on distributor of the year. The other son was runner-up distributor of the year. And the three of them were in the top 5 money earners consistently year after year after year. So I looked at Jim and I was like, that's who, that's the kind of person, that's the kind of career, that's the kind of business I would like to have. And it started very, very early for Jim. Jim was a consistent success. One of my favorite stories was he had a paper route in Miami, Florida. And that's what Jim's accent is. As you hear, that's Miami.
Yes.
Or Maine, I forget, they both start with M's.
Yeah.
But Jim, they had a contest and the top 3 winners went to the Seattle World's Fair. And then like number 4 through 50 went to a Yankees game. And Jim was a big Yankees fan. He wanted to go to the Yankees game. So he knew he had to be in the top 50, but he completely overshot, won the whole thing, and then had to trade down. Probably the only person in the world that would trade down from 1 to 4 in order to go to the Yankees game.
That's a true story. That was quite a conversation when I asked him if I could relinquish being number 1 and go and jumping on a train and going to New York City, and it's number 4. But the kid that I called couldn't believe it. So that was a fun story.
But I mean, that was it. That was it. Like at 8 years old, he was the top salesman. Wow. And then fast forward a number of years, and he's starts a copier company with a $500 investment, and turns it into a $17 million a year company that he eventually sold out to a Fortune 500. And what I know, what was your rating in the company, your sales territory, Jim? What were you rated?
In the copier business,
Yeah.
I had the 22nd largest company in the United States for sharp electronics.
22nd largest, but he was in, where were you located?
Maine, which is
Maine, which means every other person you're trying to sell to is a tree. So, so to do that in that market is extraordinary. So then he sold out. His goal was to sell his business at age 50, and I think you beat it by like 2 months or something like that, Jim. Yeah. And then he moved to Arizona, where we both live now. Jim lives in Wickenburg, and I live in Tucson. And then Jim retired. And for Jim, retirement means, well, I'm just going to start other businesses. So he, with somebody else, he invented a product, and they went on QVC and sold over 1 million units of that product. He started dabbling in network marketing, and by dabbling, I mean he becomes distributor of the year of a number of different companies. And my God, he's this year 50th wedding anniversary, right?
Yeah, Sherry and I celebrated. Probably my biggest accomplishment. She's been married to me for 50 years. So
I think that's more Sherry's accomplishment, sticking with that, really. I'm going to give her the credit.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And I, by the way, I also am on track to celebrate my 50th wedding anniversary. Now it's going to take 3 wives, but still, I'm right there. Cumulative, I think, counts. So you get the idea that Jim was extremely successful. And if we just look in the world of network marketing, I will tell you that I was not. I saw network marketing early, loved it, thought it was the most elegant business model I'd ever seen. But for some reason, I couldn't build a network marketing business, to the point where I finally said, I'm done with this. I'm going to go do something else, which was my speaking career. And while I did enjoy really good success in my speaking career, we'll talk about it as we get into this. How is it possible for somebody to be really successful in one endeavor and just totally flail in the other? And so all the traditional reasons that you think about, that you hear in network marketing for somebody failing, well, he just didn't want it bad enough. He didn't have the why that made him cry. You know, he didn't have here's my, I made this one up, Jim. He didn't have the dream that made him scream. You could do a lot of them, really.
How about I wanted it more for him than he wanted it for himself?
Right.
That one gets me. Yeah.
And I would hear that and it would just make me mad because I was like, okay, that's not true for me. I do want this. I really do. I do have the dream. I did all the things you told me to do. I've got the vision board and I've got the stickies on the mirror and I've got all the stuff you told me to do. And still, it's not happening for me. I can't get the consistent efforts that makes it happen. So that was the investigation of this is why the vast majority, and let's be honest, the vast majority of people in network marketing don't succeed. And why is that? And so that was what we began to explore. And as we started putting this together, I came across these I call them 3 data points. And there are 3 things that we connected that I don't think anyone has ever put together before. And that is an 18th century social scientist, monster made out of marshmallows, and Jerry Seinfeld. So I said we're going to talk about the 80-20 thing. And this is the guy that came up with the 80-20 thing. This is Vilfredo Pareto. And first of all, can we just all agree everybody's name sounds better in Italian? Vilfredo Pareto. I mean, think about it. I'm George Campbell. What is that? That's nothing. However, if I was Giorgio Camberdo, now that's, you guys, Stephanie Beebe. Oh my God, think about that. That's awesome. Jim Paccardo. And Vilfredo Pareto, I mean, if he was an American, Willie Parrott, right there. No one's going to listen to that. So whether or not you're familiar with Vilfredo Pareto or not, you're undoubtedly heard about the thing that was his namesake, which was the Pareto principle, which was the 80-20 rule. And basically 80-20 says that 80% of all results are going to come from 20% of all input. And we see this everywhere. We talk to a lot of traditional businesses that are sales oriented, and they will consistently tell us that 80% of their sales come from 20% of their salespeople. And it applies in everything. I've talked to pastors, and they will tell you that 80% of the contributions to their church come from 20% of the members of their church. I'm thinking it's weird how widespread this is. I saw the other day that 80% of COVID is spread by 20% of the people that have it. I mean, this is a relentless percentage. And so I looked at this, and it certainly applies to network marketing, even
probably closer to 95-5, George, rather than
right.
80-20, at least.
Right. The numbers are even worse in network marketing. And there's a reason for that. We're going to deal with that a little bit. But I was like, what? I can understand kind of the way this thing works, but I'm like, when it gets down to a person, we're all so different. How is it possible that we fit so neatly into one of these two categories? So the first thing I did is I looked at this and I said, well, let's toss out everything that the 80% and the 20% have in common. So intelligence, equally present in both groups. Education, present in both groups. Training, certainly in network marketing, training is absolutely the same for everybody. Skills, talents, abilities, equally present in both groups. And so what it came down to, the differentiator that I could put together was simply this. The difference between the 80 and the 20. The 20% who seem to succeed consistently. The 20% do what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, on a relentlessly consistent basis. The 80%, people who I identify, the 80% know what needs to be done, but they don't do it, and they certainly don't do it consistently. And this is the big differentiator between these two groups. Now, and when I say this as kind of a disclaimer, because we're going to talk about 80-20 a good bit. If, as we're talking, you think, man, I identify with the 80% characteristics he's talking about more than the 20%. Understand this. We're not talking down to anybody. We're not saying anybody is less than or more than. What we're going to do is we're going to make a very strong case that this is the difference between the 80-20, and the reason why some people are consistent and inconsistent is not a character flaw. This is not a weakness of spirit or a lack of willpower. This is going to be something very, very different than what you may have always thought it was. So if you feel like you're in the 80%, do not feel bad, because first of all, I'm you. I get it. I understand the frustration that comes from knowing what you want to do and somehow not being able to get myself to do it consistently. So there's no shame here whatsoever. So just know that. And we're going to give you a path out of this. Stephanie mentioned at the beginning of this that this applies to everything. We're going to talk about some network marketing terms here because I think that's everybody's background for the most part, but everything that we're going to talk about applies to everything, everything in your life, every aspect of your life. But in terms of network marketing, it was really interesting because I was reading Eric Worre's book, Go Pro. And Eric Worre said that there are 3 keys to getting success, having success in network marketing. And they are to get a large group of people, to do a few simple things on a relentlessly consistent basis. And network marketing, we tend to be really good at 2 of those. Large group of people, that's recruiting, and tons of time and millions of dollars are spent in trying to recruit people. A few simple things, that's training. These are the 3 things you need to do, or the 7 steps or whatever. That's the training aspect of it. So network marketing is very good at those 2 things. And this, I shouldn't limit it to just network marketing. Most companies, most businesses are good at those 2 things. The third thing, and this is where we make a fatal mistake, is that we make the assumption that if you get good, smart people, you recruit them, you teach them the few simple things that they need to know, the assumption then is that they're going to be consistent. And we know from experience that is simply not the case. I mean, Jim, you can speak to this from a leadership standpoint.
Yeah, for years and years and years, I thought that if I just hired good people and gave them the training, then they would be successful and they'd be consistent. But nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, consistency is a skill that needs to be learned just like any other skill. It's not a personality trait, it's a skill. And once I discovered that, I was able to obviously, build some businesses successfully and have my sons to follow the same path. So absolutely, I agree with that philosophy. We take consistency as a foregone conclusion that's going to happen, but it doesn't for whatever reason, right?
Right. And I know you had to have seen people come into your business that you're like, I know this guy could tear this thing up. And then.
Well, everybody, that you sponsor, you think, oh my goodness, this person's going to be great. I mean, he's got all the capabilities in the world, and you kind of leave him alone and let him go let them do their thing. And then you realize that all of a sudden they just, they don't show up. They're not there quite as often. And you
Right.
kind of take them to granted that they have that skill of consistent effort, which
Right.
unfortunately they don't have. And as we all know, it's tough enough to find a customer, sometimes, yet alone find somebody that's willing to come to work with you and say, I want to build a business. And it's very frustrating from a leader standpoint that you can't help that person no matter what kind of skills and training that you give them. And I remember years ago, I came up with a formula or a plan, it was called the Daily 8 Planner at the time, and 8 things you had to do on a daily basis to be successful. I remember sharing that with George, and he looks at those things and he said, well, that's 7 too many things for me. And it just cracks me up because, I still have the same form that I used for 30 years. And, if you do those now in this case, I've increased it to 10, so that would really blow you away, George.
Well, and just to digress a little bit, this is the trap of leadership,
Yes.
is that Jim absolutely knows what works. It's worked for him. He's proved it time and time again in a number of different areas. And then he would give that his system to someone like, I don't know, me, and I would fail with it. And so you go, well, there's got to be something wrong with me, right? Because we know the system works, and the reality is the system works perfectly for the people that the system works for. The other people, it's going to fail, and there's a reason for that, which is what we're going to get into next. So this is the second little data point, and this is my favorite graphic because it perfectly represents what we want to talk about, and that's marshmallows and monsters, because this is the monster right here. So back in the late 1960s, early 1970s, there was a Stanford researcher named Walter Mischel who did a study that famously became known as the marshmallow test. And so here's what he did. He gathered together 300 5-year-olds, which, first of all, he should have gotten a medal for that, because I don't even know how you do that. I've got a 6-year-old grandchild, which is amazing because I have no children. And if I babysit her for half a day, I have to be hospitalized. So the thought of bringing together 300 5-year-olds is beyond comprehension, but he did. God love him. And what he did was he took each of them one by one into a room, set them down at a table, and on that table, he put a marshmallow. And he said, here's the deal. I'm going to leave, but when I come back, probably about 15 minutes, if I come back and that marshmallow is still there, I will give you a second marshmallow, little marshmallow, double or nothing. Now, for the home viewer, let's take a guess about the percentage of kids that were able to deny their desire to eat the marshmallow. How many kids do you think didn't eat the marshmallow and got a second marshmallow?
20%.
You can play. 20%. 20%. It's always 80-20. It's shocking. It is shocking how many times this comes true. 20% of the kids didn't eat the marshmallow, 80% of the kids did. So let me show you this little guy, because this is a little guy that I like to call little 5-year-old Jim. So Jim, if you were 5 years old, confronted with this test, what would you have done?
Well, George, anytime that I can get a 100% return on my investments, I wouldn't have eaten the marshmallows. I would have waited to get the second one.
That's right. I guarantee you, Jim has every marshmallow. Oh, they're right there. Look at him. Jim has every marshmallow he's ever earned right there. So let me introduce you to another little guy I like to call little George, little 5-year-old George. So I will tell you right now, presented with the same challenge, I would have eaten the marshmallow before the guy got done explaining the experiment. I would have been, oh yeah. And he wouldn't even gotten out of the door before I would have eaten the marshmallow. And we used to do this, talk about this on stage. We would have a bag of marshmallows there, and Jim would not eat his, and then I would eat mine and try and talk while I'm eating the marshmallow. And we said, well, we should do that. We should do that on these leadership calls too, because that'd be funny. And then Jim asked me today, he said, are you going to do the thing where you eat the marshmallow? And I said, no. And he said, why not? And I said, because I've eaten all my marshmallows. I don't have any marshmallows for our little show. So some things don't change, is what we've discovered about the marshmallow thing. So this study was really cute and was fun, and you can go online and look at the guys, the little guys that are trying not to eat the marshmallows. It's hysterical to watch. But here's the lesson that we can extrapolate from this, because what they discovered is that they had contact information on all these kids, and they could track them down and see how they did later in life. Are there any differences of experience based on whether or not somebody was able to delay gratification or not delay gratification at age 5. And here's what they discovered. Mid-teens, latter teens, the kids that did not eat the marshmallow had higher GPAs, higher SAT scores, and were judged to be more socially advanced. A little bit later in life, midlife, the people that did not eat the marshmallow had more educational attainment, more professional advancement. They earned more money. They had a lower divorce rate. And according to body mass index, they were actually healthier. And then finally, we get to 2011. Now some things have changed. We now have the ability, using a functional MRI machine, to look inside a real human, living, breathing human being in real time, non-invasively, and see how their brain works. So they brought back these test subjects one more time, and they put them in a functional MRI, and a researcher could look at the brain activity in one of 2 areas of the brain and tell you with 100% certainty whether or not that test subject did or did not eat the marshmallow 45 years prior.
That's scary just to think about that, but that can be done.
That's the monster. Right there is the monster, because what that means is by age 5 and probably before, we are hardwired for either delayed gratification or instant gratification. This is what we're fighting. It's not a question of how much we want something. It's a question of wiring. This is the reason why so many of the techniques and strategies we use to try and change people into consistency fail, because they don't take into account this fact that we are literally wired differently. And what works for Jim ain't gonna work for me. So here's why. So there's 2 different parts of the brain. There's the prefrontal cortex and there's the ventral striatum. These are very, very different parts of the brain. The prefrontal cortex is the executive functioning part of the brain. It's the part of the brain that can look at an action in the moment and project the likely outcome of if we engage in that action. That is very different than the ventral striatum.
That's where I think of it, right?
Yeah, that is where Jim works out of the ventral striatum, or works out of the prefrontal cortex. So let's say, Jim, go through what's the process?
If I'm sitting, let's just say they announce a contest from the front of the room, I immediately start thinking, okay, what do I have to do to win that contest? Not only win the contest, but perhaps win the airline ticket, perhaps win 2 contests. So I immediately develop a list who I'm going to call, my prospects, and I pick up the phone, because I know by picking up the phone, it's going to get me into action, which gives me closer to my goal. So it's not a difficult task for me to do. I know that by picking it up, I'm closer to going to Maui. Basically.
Right. You can look at the action in the moment and project where it's going to be. Now contrast that with someone like me, who tends to make my decisions out of the ventral striatum, which has a completely different set of criteria to make decisions. This is so critical to understand. Jim can look at the long-term outcome. Here's what I'm looking at, because the ventral striatum is it was developed much earlier in our brains, way before the prefrontal cortex. It's a much more primitive, if you will, portion of our brains. And it makes decisions based on 3 factors. Is it easy? Is it safe? Is it pleasurable? Now think about easy, safe, pleasurable. Think about the decisions I'm likely to make when I'm using that strategy. Because let's say Jim and I are both in the same room. We're both in the same network marketing company and announce the same trip to Maui. Jim's thinking, okay, this is what I need to do. And the day comes and he picks up the phone and bam, because that's what you're going to do, because that's where you get to where you're going. Now me, I'm the same guy. I want to go to Maui. I like Maui. And I'm sitting there and I'm going to pick up the phone. So I need to pick up the phone and call somebody. Okay. First of all, and I know no one ever understands this, but God love me, it's true. I'm an introvert. I'm very much an introvert. You can do what I do and still be an introvert. I know it sounds crazy, but trust me, it's true. So a good day for me is if I don't have to talk with anybody. That's awesome. Give me a book, give me a movie, I'm good. So I'm an introvert. Picking up the phone to call someone, not easy. It is not easy for me. I don't want to do it. No, it's not easy. Is it safe? No, because they could reject me. They could tell me that I have no interest in what you're doing and I can't believe you're doing it. I could be hurt. And is it pleasurable? No, it's not pleasurable. Who would find pleasure in that? For the love of Pete. So Jim and I wanting exactly the same thing, desiring it exactly as much as each other, Jim's decision, because he's making it in a different part of his brain, Jim's decision is going to be completely different than mine. Now, here's where it gets really insidious, is I'm not going to say that I'm not going to call anybody because that would be giving up on my dream. I want to go to Maui. Of course I'm going to call people. My gosh. Yeah, call people. Absolutely. Just not today. Because you can't call people on Tuesday. I mean, people are just recovered from Monday. They're just finally getting to the swing of the word. You can't interrupt them on Tuesday. Wednesday, you can't call people on Wednesday. Wednesday's hump day. They call it hump day for a reason. Thursday, people are trying to get their work done so they can get out on Friday. Friday, you can't call because they're trying to get out. They're trying to get their week. Saturday, you can't call. Saturday, people doing stuff with their families on Saturday. Sunday, you can't call people, obviously, because the morning is church and the afternoon is football. You can't call people on Sunday. Monday, out of the question because you can't call people on Monday because they're just getting back to work and they're overwhelmed. And Tuesday, we're back to Tuesday. And so I will never say I'm not going to do it. What I'm going to say is I'm not going to do it today. And you do that day after day after day. And all you're doing is in a way that never threatens you, you just slowly, carefully, gradually push away your future and your dreams just one day at a time.
And as a leader, I look at a Zoom call and all of a sudden I don't see that person's name or that person's picture. And you always wonder, you go, wow, what happened to that person? He has so much potential. I couldn't help him. I didn't know what to do.
Right. What happened to George? I knew George was going to make it. Whatever happened to him? The reality is, George, it's just like 95% of people in network marketing is they just put it off one day at a time until it no longer is a real thing. So that's pretty awful, right? I mean, this is pretty, if we stop the program here, I got to believe no one's going to enjoy this very much. So let's stop it here. No, we've got three options. How do you overcome this? How are we going to beat this thing? And we do have a viable option. So don't feel too bad yet. First option. This is what I investigated. When I read about the 80-20 thing and found out that the unbelievable importance of delayed gratification, I thought, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to learn how to delay gratification because that's the key to this whole thing. And so I ordered like 6 books on Amazon. And there was nothing. I'm a reader. I love to read. And I read all the 6 books. I read them all the way through. There was nothing in there that I felt like was something that was useful to me. And here's how I should have known that it wasn't going to be useful to me, is I bought 6 books on Amazon. I bought them all on Kindle. So I was buying books on how to learn to delay gratification, and I was buying them on Kindle so I could get them instantly. Wow. Who could have seen that this wasn't going to work out for me? So if you can learn how to delay gratification, God love you. I have not seen anything that makes me think that's a viable option. Second option is the one most popular. Quit.
Quit. Just don't start, right? Just don't quit. Just quit. Some wills, some won't.
So what next?
Yeah.
Quit. And that's what most people will do. Fact is, most people in a network marketing situation, again, they announce a trip to Maui. I know Jim is going. I know it because he always goes. He always wins these things. And I know in my heart, I ain't. I'm not. So I've never won them. Why would this be different? So what I'm going to do is I'm not even going to start. I basically quit before the thing ever starts.
I'll send you a postcard though, George.
Do what?
I'll send you a postcard.
Yeah, you would, because you're not a nice man. That's just rubbing it in, man. So that's the second option, is quit. Here's the third option. This is the one we're going to recommend that we actually have a very a really good strategy for. We call it, we say we have a plan for people who have a tough time following a plan. So here's the third strategy, and that is this. We're going to take, instead of trying to deny our essential nature and our current wiring of our heads, let's not try and overcome this with brute force. Let's take instant gratification, which has been our downfall, and turn it into our rocket fuel. Let's take the very thing that was holding us back and use it to drive us into the future. So here's where Jerry Seinfeld comes into play. So August 2016, I saw an interview online with Jerry Seinfeld, and he was talking about a kid that came up to him asking a question about, basically say, how do I become Jerry Seinfeld, young comic? And Seinfeld said, well, first of all, that was never my goal to become Jerry Seinfeld. You know, all the limos and Learjets, that wasn't the deal for me. He said, I had one goal, and we're going to get into this because this is really a key differentiator. He said, I had one goal, and that was to become a better comic. Now, understand this, because this is the key differentiator. This is not a traditional goal. And we're going to talk about why this is going to work for us when traditional goals didn't. But Jerry Seinfeld says, I'm going to become a better comic. And then he said, what I did next was I decided on an activity that if I engaged in it on a consistent basis would take me in the direction I want to go, which is to be a better comic. And he said that activity was to write jokes. So day one, all right, I'm going to write jokes. So he wrote jokes. He got a calendar, looked at the calendar, made an X on the calendar. Day one, I wrote jokes. Day two, wrote jokes, put another X on the calendar. Now, the genius of Seinfeld, the reason why Jerry Seinfeld got paid $800 million when he sold the syndication rights to his sitcom, the genius of him was he did not see two X's on a piece of paper. What he saw were two links of a chain. Day three, and every day after that, he had one simple goal. Don't break the chain. Don't break the chain. When Jim was talking about, he had the Daily 8 scorecard. And that would have been overwhelming to me. The complexity of that would have been overwhelming to me. And this boils down to the simplicity. I don't have 8 things that I got to focus on. I've got one goal. Don't break the chain. So here's the reason why this works for people like me in the 80%, people that are driven by instant gratification. This is also the reason why traditional goals never work for me. So what is a traditional goal? A traditional goal is something that is off in the distance that we can't get right now, and it's going to take time and it's going to take effort, and where there's uncertainty that we're ever going to get it. So you think about that. What is that? That's a goal is something off in the distance that we can't get. That is the embodiment of delayed gratification. And what have we established that I suck at? Delayed gratification. Well, is it any wonder that I would go through all that goal setting stuff, follow all the steps, and fail? I remember I was in a network marketing company, and I had a really high level guy sit down with me because I had so much potential. And he said, okay, I'm going to line this out for you. And it was the first time I'd ever seen SMART goals. Ooh, and I was like, all right, this is the one, SMART goals. And it was like, and he lined them out, boy. And it's just like SMART, specific. Ooh, yeah, specific. M, measurable. A, assignable. R, never can remember. T, time-based. I'm like, oh yes, this is the one, boy. And I started putting these things into place. I remember one time I set a SMART goal. Me, George Campbell, assignable, will weigh 175 pounds, specific, measurable, on January 1, time-based. Ooh. And then January 1 rolls around. First of all, never set a goal that ends on January 1, because there's a very good chance you've been to a party the night before. And so things are going to be a little hazy January 1 anyway. But January 1, I get on there and I get on my 175 pounds. I get on my scale and I look down at my scale and sure enough, 175. Ha! Now, if it had stopped there, that would have been awesome. But the scale just went up to 205, which was about 5 pounds more than I was when I started my SMART goal. And I did this over and over and over again. And at some point in time, you finally go, you know what? This isn't for me. This business, when I started the business, I did want to build it, but now I just feel like, yeah, this isn't for me. So I'm just, Jim, I know you're going to do great at it, but this is not the right timing for me. And, and you're gone. The difference between a SMART goal and what we call an ER direction, and Jerry Seinfeld had an ER direction. He wanted to be a better comic. Now I know that doesn't fulfill any of the traditional goal setting. It isn't specific, measurable, time-based. It isn't any of those things. But here's the power of setting an goal, becoming a better comic. When I read that article, what I decided was I was going to apply it to an area of my life that I'd never been consistent in, and that was working out. And I said, I'm going to work out 45 minutes to an hour a day. And my goal was this: I want to be fitter, I want to be healthier, I want to be stronger. Here's the power of how this works, because I got up the first day and I went to the gym, and I came back from the gym and I looked into the mirror and I could say with complete certainty, complete integrity, complete belief, I could look in the mirror after coming back from my workout and I could say, George, you're fitter, you're stronger, you're healthier. Every single workout, I hit my goal every single day.
Instant gratification. Yourself every day, George.
Do what?
You felt good about yourself every single day.
Absolutely. I wasn't waiting for some far off thing to occur before I could be happy or satisfied or proud of myself. It was today. It was instant. And because of that instant gratification that drove me, I put together that first chain. I put together a chain of 531 straight days. I had never done anything that consistently in my life, because it felt good, because I won every single day. And I never worried about tomorrow. If you asked me if I was going to work out tomorrow, I would have said no, because you can't work out tomorrow. You can only work out today. And it takes all the pressure off. And it allowed me to take my insane desire for instant gratification and put it to use in attaining long-term goals.
And you can do the same thing from a business standpoint.
Absolutely.
I'm a better recruiter. I'm a better leader. I'm a better prospector, whatever it might be, whatever your direction is.
Yep.
And do that doing simple activity every day that gets you closer to following that direction.
Right. So here, and we're going to talk about that. So there's a 3-step process to doing this, and that is, number one, decide the area of your life you want to focus on. The good news is there aren't that many areas. Yep. I mean, you got career, you got financial, you got relationships, you got health, spiritual, intellectual. I mean, there's only there's a handful that you need to nail down. That's great news, because you can basically master 1/5 of your life with this technique and then move on to the next one. So decide what area of your life you want to focus on. The second one is define your ER direction. And Jim just talked about it in network marketing, for instance. Be a better listener, better prospector, better presenter, better sponsor. Those are very, very simple ER directions. And finally, declare the activity that you're going to do, the action that you're going to take on a daily basis. For Seinfeld, it was writing jokes. For me, First Chain, it was working out every day. For you in a network marketing company or whatever it is that you decide that you want to work on, you find that what we call a high leverage activity. And what a high leverage activity means is it's an activity that if I did it every single day, it's going to move the needle. Over time, it is absolutely going to move the needle. You want to make sure it's that kind of activity, because the last thing you want to do is spend a whole lot of time on something that, yeah, I put together a pretty good chain, but it didn't really change anything on the external side over time. So
Reminds me of that story, George, when we did a presentation for the real estate firm.
yeah.
I'll let you explain that one, which was.
Well, we presented to a real estate company. We came back a month later and we said, who's built a chain? And just get some stories. And one lady says, I built a perfect chain. And we said, great, what was your activity? She said, every day I learn a little bit more about the company, the history of the company. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a perfect example of a low leverage activity. It's you did something, but is it going to translate into real change in your life? And probably not. Here's our recommended activity that we recommend for people that are in network marketing. We call it Plan 21. Jim, why don't you talk about this?
Yeah, when we first came up, when George and I were talking, why was I successful in building previous companies, as well as my sons? And we had one activity every day. We had to talk to somebody about our product or service every single day. That was our goal. And when we started the consistency chain, and especially knowing George's background, I mean, guys, he's got thousands of followers on Facebook and YouTube and all that stuff. And I said, well, George, all you have to do is just talk to one person a day in your database, and we'll get this thing launched pretty darn quick. I remember George looking at me like kind of like a deer in the headlight kind of look, like, I'm not sure I can talk to one person a day. And I'm going, really? We're only talking one person, George. And he goes, well, I'm not sure I could talk to one person a day. And I said, well, could you reach out to one person a day? And he says, well, yeah, if I didn't have to talk to them. And then it dawns on you, boy, that's the difference between an 80%er and 20%er, at least as far as recruiting goes. And so we came up with a formula, well, just reach out to 2 people a day or talk to one, whatever comes first. And by applying that principle, it's easy, anybody can do it. Or reach out is simply going on LinkedIn or Facebook or however, and just going, hey, Stephanie, I see a lot of exciting things are going on in your life based on what I saw on Facebook. Hey, let's talk sometime. I mean, it could be as simple as that. It could be reaching out to somebody you haven't talked to for years and going, how's this whole virus thing affecting you and up, in Augusta, where we're from. I mean, that's a reach out. It's just starting a conversation in hopes that at some point somebody's going to call you back, or you're going to get into a conversation that can come around to what are you up to? And it really leads to a conversation about your product or service. And if you reach out to 2 people every single day for a number of days, you're going to have, at some point, people are going to call you back, and 80% of, like George, is going to have to talk to that person. He's going to be forced to talk to that person. So that's where we came up with the 21 formula. And it seems to, well, we know it does work because we've proven it with our chain gangs and whatever, George. So
right. So 21 is simply reach out to 2 or talk to 1. And obviously, if your company teaches something different, do what your company teaches, but do it consistently. Use the consistency chain to do it consistently. The other thing is the people we've seen that have a struggle with this are people that don't start. Act today. Do it today. Today is the only day you have to do this. And if you don't take action today, the chances of you taking action tomorrow go down. Yeah, I mean, we always say there's a television show, The First 48, and there's a homicide detectives. If they don't get a clue in the first 48 hours, the chances of solving the crime decrease by 50%. We believe if you don't take action during the first 48 hours, the chances you ever take an action go down by 80%. So take action now. Now we do have, for those of you who are interested, we've got a book on Amazon, the Consistency Chain for Network Marketing is available. We also have an app. I can't get it. We burned through so much time. I can't get into this too much, but the chaingangapp.com. And this is a web app that you get, you go to the web to get at the Chain Gang app. And what it does is we put you into little chain gangs, little groups of 3 to 5 people, and it's a support and accountability groups. And this has been insanely effective. We've seen people with a 5 to 10% consistency rate go up to a consistent 82, 83%. So this has been a really, really effective tool. The other thing I want to tell you about, I will tell you this, it costs 2 cups of coffee a month. Is basically $7.97 a month. So if you can forego 2 cups of coffee at Starbucks, you can be a part of this and it'll change your life. We always say that 1 cup of coffee will change your morning, 2 cups of coffee will change your life. So that's at the chaingangapp.com. It's not in the app stores. The other thing I wanted to tell you, because this is brand new, Stephanie, you haven't even heard about this. So the thing that we ran into the 21 thing was there's a gap. You can start the conversation, but then there is a gap in between starting the conversation and actually engaging in a conversation where you're talking about your service or your business or your opportunity. And we were like, man, we've got to have that's that uncomfortable conversation that people shy away from and they find themselves not engaging in. So,
or better yet, you don't know how to bridge the gap for just talking casually to somebody when you want to talk to them about your business. There's a gap there that very difficult to bridge sometimes.
Right, and the least experienced people are the people that are the awfulest at that. They don't know the words yet, and they're not comfortable with it. So we're in the first stage of beta for a new tool that basically you just say to somebody, somebody says, well, what are you doing? You say, man, I got something really cool to show you. Can I send you a link? I think you're going to get a kick out of it. And it takes people through what we call, it uses Facebook Messenger as the platform. It's a Facebook Messenger engagement sequence that basically takes people through a conversation that is fun and interesting. And it allows people to either say, yeah, I'd be interested in getting some more information based on actual, the ability to make a good decision at that point, or no, I'm not interested. And the thing is, all the people that aren't interested, which is going to be over half the people, we call it the unnecessary no. Why would we take the unnecessary no? Let this tool take that for you. Anybody that says, no, I wouldn't be interested in looking at that, God love them. Go with God. And the 46% that are interested or at least open, that's the people you want to be talking to. So this allows you to, without any sort of emotional involvement, take a no. And those are just the people that they just go.
And
the other people,
it's fun to read or look at. It's not fun. It's funny. You can't wait to answer a question to get to the next question.
Yeah.
It's that funny.
Yeah. So anyway,
I just want to say I showed it to 3 friends. Just that test one that you did about a month, just on it was a pet theme one. And I sent it to 3 people that I knew had dogs, and all 3 of them ended up buying product from that company because of the sequence they went through. I mean, yeah. So we know we're on to something here. So
that's on the horizon. And I would encourage you to connect with us on Facebook on the Consistency Chain, and we'll keep you informed as we roll this out company by company, because it's really fun and it's really exciting. And I think the people that is going to help the most are the people that need it the most, the people that are the least skilled, least knowledgeable, but are still excited about starting a new business. Now we give them a tool that says, there you go. Let's take that off your plate. Let's make it extremely easy for you to contact people. And if they say yes, awesome. And if they say no, no problem, because there's no emotional involvement. Anyway, that's our story, Stephanie. Jump back in.
Well, that was absolutely incredible, like it always is. But I have to say, I'm really, really excited to learn about this new program. And just to put it in perspective, Isogenics had the biggest day in their entire history of 17 years last Saturday.
Awesome.
So we're at a point where all these new people are coming in, and people who have never been in this type of industry or have ever asked those type of questions.
Yep.
So the more training on that topic we can give them, the better. That is phenomenal. I don't know if we have any time for questions. If anyone has any questions, if you want to type them in, we can start there. Type them in the chat. But George, I mean, every time you present and speak, I just gain so much more out of
Thank
it
you.
and receive so much more. And today, without an exception, I mean, you just looked into the souls of, I think, every single person that was on this call.
Well, you know, the thing is, it began with me looking into my soul. You know, these were things that had driven me crazy my entire life, that made me feel less. And the reason, and I will just say this really quickly, the reason why I was able to succeed in speaking when I wasn't able to succeed in network marketing is because comedy has been in my life my whole life. And being on stage has been, so what is that? That's it. Writing comedy is easy. Going on stage is safe. Having people applaud is pleasurable. Well, of course I would succeed in that, where the other thing I'm going to struggle.
Right.
And you can imagine, Stephanie, when I'm watching George on, presenting to our group, whatever it was, 15 years ago, 10, whatever, going, gosh, I wish he was on my team, right? And a capable person like that. And like I said, would have been frustrating, but it led us to where we are today. So
Yeah. Our frustrating conversations would have been funny, though, Jim.
Oh, yeah, no question about that. That's I'm amazed how you can be a 20%er in some areas of your life and an 80%ers in others. And it always used to drive me crazy why, you can succeed in one area, not the other.
Yep.
George has just taken it to a whole different level with this research. So it's been fun. But, when you sponsor people, you got to figure that 80% of the people you sponsor are going to be, are going to struggle. And now we might not be able to help all 80%, but we can help 20% of that 80%, which would make a big difference in everybody's life. So,
yeah.
Any questions anybody has that we can answer?
Pam did have a question. She asked a couple times if you guys have the time.
Sure.
And for those of you, if you want to hang on, if you're able to, fantastic. If you need to go, of course.
Yeah.
I know everyone loved being here today. But Pam asked, do you think the family environment has any determination on the 20% at 5 years old?
That's a really good question. It's funny. I've always asked Jim. Both Jim's kids are 20%ers, and I always asked Jim. I said, "What would you have done if they hadn't been?"
I probably would have asked for a paternity test.
Would not have gone well. I can only imagine.
Yeah, I don't know if this is environmental or genetic. I don't know what causes it. I do know that you can absolutely have 20% parents and 80% kids, because I've seen it happen. And the pain of that playing out is excruciating to watch, because the 20% parent has certain expectations and the 80% kid cannot live up to them. And neither one understands why.
What's that old saying that your net worth is determined by your network and those 5 people that you hang around the most? And if you're hanging around a father that, constantly says money's not growing, doesn't grow on trees, I mean, that's got to affect you at some point. But you can overcome it. I can guarantee you that.
I tend to think it's the way we're born, just because it happens so early.
By 5.
Yeah. But I don't know. I've not seen any good research on that, so I don't know. I do know that it's a thing, and to be able to realize where you are, if you're either a 20% or 80% parent, and thinking about your kids and understanding them along these lines, and it's the same as with a leader. You can help people now. I mean, this is a tool that will absolutely help somebody. So if you have a kid that's struggling trying to do the daily 8 that you require of them, let's find a different approach so
Right.
that neither one of us are just frustrated and walk away from the whole thing mad and with hurt feelings and feel less than, shame.
Can I give a quick little example? Because I've had this in my family as well. I have 3 boys. We did the marshmallow test. I saw a difference with each one of them. And I'm going to put my husband and I on that 20%er. I always feel like I'm a little bit more of a 40%er. Uh, but but my 8-year-old, the youngest, at one point told me, Mama, if you want me to accomplish something, you need to give me one assignment at a time, not 5.
Yeah.
It's like you're telling me to do 5 things at once. I can only handle 1. And I'm like, wow, he just gave me the consistency chain. And
Right.
he just gave me that ruling without even understanding it. And somehow this 8-year-old understood, I can handle 1 thing. Don't give me any more than that.
Right.
Okay.
Great example. I love it.
Yeah, it has changed everything. Although I do have to stop myself every once in a while because he never hears the 1 thing.
A lot of times we get the question, how many chains can you have? And we recommend doing 1 chain at a time until you really master that chain. So
Yeah.
I was a 20%er. I started off with about 4 or 5, and I'm down to 2. Okay. But we found that having 1 chain and mastering that, and whatever you pick for an activity, it doesn't matter what the activity is initially, because you can, it's more important to do the chain on a daily basis. And you can increase the intensity, whatever it might be, instead of reaching out to 2 or talking to 1. I mean, you can reach out to 10 and talk to 2 or whatever it might be. Instead of walking, around the block, you can start walking a mile a day or 2 miles a day. So you can increase the intensity later on.
Yeah. The key is your understanding that you're still trying to beat that easy, safe, pleasurable filter.
Yeah.
And so you want it not to feel overwhelming, but you want it to be significant enough to matter.
Yeah.
So that's kind of especially where 21 came in. I mean, anybody can reach out to 2 people.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody on this call could just hang up the phone and reach out to 2 people in about 5 minutes. So that's easy. Is it safe? Absolutely. You're just reaching out to them. And is it pleasurable? Sure. You're done. And you think, man, I did it. I did what I said I was going to do. I'm proud of myself. I could celebrate that.
Absolutely fantastic. Really, truly great. And it goes perfectly with what we have been bringing in with our Penny app.
Yeah, that's exciting. I went to that website and checked it out, and I'm going to have a demo on that hopefully later this week.
Yeah, great. I'll introduce you to the owner. But so if you're using Penny, use the consistency chain to just help you do the Penny.
Yeah.
And the theory and the mindset, and to just get into your heart and soul that I can do that. If you haven't started Penny, this is a great way to just push yourself to start it 1 person at a time, and then 2 people, 2 reach outs, 1 conversation. And of course, with our brand new product of the collagen, that's a great, easy conversation to have with people. Jim and George, we love you, especially for those that have gotten to know you. I know you have something to say, George. For those of you that have gotten to know Jim and George, I know you all agree.
We love coming on, and we've talked to your team a number of times, Stephanie, and your group, and it's just, obviously I like Isogenics. I've been down to your place many times and gone through the factory and played golf with some of the people there, and love the company. I just want to tell everybody that if anybody has a question or need clarification on anything, just send me an email at jim@consistencychain.com. I would recommend that you didn't send it to George because he probably won't answer it. Okay, but I will. But I'm thrilled to help you any way that we can. So.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I know you mean that.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, we appreciate that, because you have been here anytime we've asked, and always giving as much as you possibly can. And we love you for that. So thank you again for today. Thank you for the stories. Thank you for the visuals, and thank you for the opportunities to reach out to 2, talk to 1 every day.
Absolutely.
today.
Absolutely.
So check in with everyone on Tribe Time and let us know if you did it today. I want to hear I did it, or I made my link.
Do it today. All right. Awesome. Hey, thank you. Everybody have a great and safe day.
Yep, absolutely.
Great. Thank you.